Welcome to another episode of the Caribbean Edge. We are so excited for this episode tonight, and we do have Miss Tiffany Knowles joining us tonight. So welcome, Tiffany.
Hello, a pleasure to be with you, Dawn, and the Caribbean Edge family.
Thank you. So I want to talk about how I actually found you, right?
Okay.
Which is social media. You wrote a very interesting article. So can you tell our viewers what that article was?
Yes. Well, I am a writer and a journalist, and I write about a variety of topics, but specifically this story that Dawn stumbled upon was published in the Christian Post, because I've been published in different publications and periodicals. This one, the Christian Post published. It's called 8 Reasons My Sexual Status Turns Men Off.
Yep.
And so that's how she stumbled upon me. But I think she may have seen me in other circles, but that was what the point of connection for her to find me and want to talk to me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about you a little bit, because you're an author, yes, and you and your dad actually wrote a book. Yes. So the title of that book, which is very interesting, it's Hola America, Guts, Grit, Grind, and Further Traits in the Successful American Immigrants, right?
Yes, that is the book. It can be a mouthful, but it makes a very powerful statement about immigrants in this country and how there's so much to learn from the immigrant experience. If you're friends with an immigrant, if you are an immigrant, you kind of know what that life is. You've left everything you know, and you come to a country where you may not know the language, the customs, the culture, but you have to make a way for yourself and your family. So there's a lot of guts in there. There's a lot of grind you have to do. But it was important for us to share the stories of immigrants who were like that and not just rely on what was being painted about immigrants in the news. So my dad, he's a Bahamian immigrant. My mom is a Jamaican immigrant. And so coming together, they raised me. And so I wanted to write something that reflected that. So my dad and I co-wrote it. My dad is also a writer.
Great. So I understand from the book itself that it's stories that you've captured, right, of different immigrants and how hardworking they are. And actually, a lot of them have success stories. And your dad is one that there's one story, because I go digging sometimes, especially if I have a guest coming on, and it talks about him rolling up his pants during the flooding and still went to work, which sets the tone of, you do what it takes to provide for your family.
That's right. That was my dad's story, actually. I told that story on a podcast. So you listened to a podcast. Okay. So yes, I told that story because it was such a powerful image growing up. I saw him. He has the most tremendous work ethic in the world. Mm-hmm. I hope he's watching the show so he can hear, because I don't think he's heard me tell that story before. But yeah, that's the story of, it was a tropical storm or hurricane or whatever. In Miami, that's very, very, very common, right? So it was that day, and I remember our backyard was flooded, our front yard was flooded, the whole driveway was flooded, even into the street was flooded. And he rolled up his pant legs to his knees and carried his socks and shoes in his hands and waded through the water to get to his car to open the office. So wow. I have a very clear image, completely indelible. I remember that like it was yesterday. So that's that rich imagery, that's what you would read in the stories of these immigrants. Exactly.
Right. And it's nice that you're doing that, because we do need to display our hard work, our culture, our people. So thank you for doing that. And I'm going to, after I listened to it, I was like, I got to get this book, right? So how can we get the book?
Oh yeah, so you can go on to our website, holaamericabook.com. So hola is spelled like the Spanish hello. And we do have a few Latin American immigrant stories in the book too, but it is written in English. HolaAmericaBook.com, and then it is on Amazon. So if you go through that site, it'll take you to the Amazon page as well, and you'll find it. So happy emancipation to our Jamaican family, happy independence to our Bahamian family, which was July, and to our Jamaican family.
I saw that on your page, actually. I need to keep up with my Bahamian people. So tell us about mom and dad, because I know people are tuning in because the topic is so interesting, which is you are a virgin.
Right.
Correct. So, and you're open. We had a brief conversation and you said, well, you know, we'll ask away. And if there's anything you don't want to answer, feel free to say, okay, my parents might be watching. I don't want to answer that one. Okay. Or you might be open to answering it, you know, because
I mean, like, I'm really curious to see how far Don Wilson will go. I don't know. I'm really curious. I've never done an interview like this. So I don't know.
We're going to find out. But I want to talk about your parents a little bit. So, okay. Mom's Jamaican.
Yes.
Okay. So, what's your relationship like with mom? Was she strict?
Yes. She was strict, and I have two maternal figures who played like an instrumental role in raising me. So that's her mom as well, and so that happens often in Caribbean or immigrant households. Like you're raised by more than one, not just a parent, but an aunt as well as grandparents and stuff like that. So my mother, as well as my grandmother, very, very strict, and definitely instilling Christian values as well as very conservative lady values. So that was definitely the talk from home. But my mom, she's very fun loving. If you go on my Facebook page, you'll see she's put some comments up right now concerning the show and everything. She's very proud of me, but she's always been very much the life of the party. She's totally youthful. And she's a great time, but she is extremely strict. So there was fun and love and discipline that she raised us with. But I remember, and this is just a story just to kind of touch on the topic we're about to go. I remember when I was spending, I think it was a summer in Jamaica with my grandma, and we went out somewhere, and I think it was a family friend who greeted us, but he was close to my age, which meted us in town. And he came to visit me and her in our house in the country, and asked very, very simply, as if this was going to be fine, asked to take me to a movie at night. And she was like, no, that's not happening. Not my granddaughter visiting from the States. It's not happening. And I was so upset. I was like, call mommy, because I think she would let me go. No, she wouldn't let you go. And I wouldn't let you go either. So not going to happen. So, you know, it was kind of that, please remember, you are still a lady who has to be respected at all hours, and I don't know what would happen to you if I send you to town to go to movie on your summer vacation. So pretty much it's, that's basically it.
So a lot of island people can certainly relate to that, because I, for one, had an extremely strict dad. So yes, but I also, living in this day and age, 2020, and with grown kids, I realized some of the island rules or strictness, I just can't do them here. And everyone's life is different, everyone's journey is different. So what's strict to me may not be strict to someone else, and vice versa, right?
That's right.
So what is your definition of being a virgin?
Okay, the definition of being a virgin is penetration. So that has not happened, right? So that would be the definition. I would very much like it to happen. So I'm not a virgin that doesn't want it to happen, which there are some of those, by the way. I've been called, you know, I should be in a nunnery, a monastery, whatever, convent. I haven't been called to that life. So that's a no for me on that. But I do want to experience that very, very soon, hopefully. But within the confines of marriage is what I'd hope. So.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, what are you waiting for, right? And
Right.
it's marriage, right? And what are those beliefs based on?
Okay, great. So that's an awesome question. So it's evolved, right? So initially, it's parents. I'll tell you, my Bahamian father. This very much stems from culture, right? So we'll start from there. So my Bahamian father, he was very particular about me and my dealings with boys, because in his country, many young women, they drop out of high school, they don't go and get education further than maybe 11th grade or so, because they end up getting pregnant before their time. So he has horror stories of that in his head. So he's constantly, like, throughout the years, I mean, it had to have been said once a month that I don't want you getting pregnant out of wedlock. I don't want any belly to be, I don't want you to walk in this door and there's a belly. These are things that, and for those in the Caribbean community, you know, you can shout us out if that's your experience too. But so that was definitely his point. And then it was reinforced by my mom, because similarly in her country, a lot of women end up pregnant at early ages and can't advance in a career. And she was very big on education and career. And she did achieve that in her life. She wanted that for me. So that was reinforced. So then you have church. And you know, in a Caribbean household, there is very much church as part of our upbringing. So I remember when we, the young people, we had our, you know, youth meetings and things like that. And I remember there was a big push in the 1990s for us to have a true love waits. True love waits. So you wanted to wait until you found true love, and true love within this religious context was marriage. So it was encouraged for the young women to make that vow and that oath, right? And I remember doing that. So all throughout life, I remember that oath, and I'm a very vow-driven person. So I like to be a person of my word, and I said to God, that's what I want, and that's what I believe you want for me. I began to have a better understanding of it. And this is a long story, but I'm just trying to get into all the different pockets of why I would believe this, right? So the next, I guess I graduated to another viewpoint, which was, I want a family that's whole. And I want to make sure that I don't fracture my family too early. So you know what? I'll wait for a man who wants to have a family with me, because it's very possible that we could procreate together if we have sex. So I wait for that kind of man. And then it elevated another step. You know what? It feels awful when you have a physical encounter with somebody and then they leave, right? So I want somebody to stay with me if I had that physical intimacy with them. So it reinforced my view, because I didn't want to be abandoned. And I saw a lot of that in my culture too. Right. So it just began to elevate as I got older to where I am now.
And I think we need to tell the viewers as well, because when I first saw your picture and still looking at you, I was like, and I told Old School Radio, who is sponsoring tonight's show as well, that, oh yeah, they asked me, what's the next topic for the Caribbean Edge? I said, oh, I'm interviewing a 20-something-year-old virgin. And then we spoke for about 5 minutes on Sunday, and I said, "How old are you? And can you tell the nephew how old
Am
you
I
are?"
really going to do this? You see, wait, this is Dawn is, she's going really far with this interview, but I kind of love it because as a journalist, I want to be a journalist's dream. So I'm going to do this for you. Okay. Yes, I am 37.
Okay. So I think that will shock a lot of people because it shocked me. It shocked me that even in your 20s, when I read the article, that you were a virgin. So when you told me on Sunday that you're actually 37, I was double shocked, right? Which a lot of viewers are probably double shocked right now. So it is really an honor to have this conversation with you because to some degree, I think that I can learn a lot from you. And I think young girls can learn a lot from you. So I'm truly glad that you're coming on and having the conversation. Mm-hmm. And like I said, if there's something, because one particular viewer sent me some questions and I have questions and questions may come up. So if there's anything that you don't want to answer, I'll say it again. Just say, I can't answer that one.
I'll see if I can take you up on it. I'll take you up on as many as I can, and then I'll pull the card if I have to.
Yes. Okay. So we've established age, and hearing what you're saying about the strict parenting, because most Caribbean people can relate to that. I can certainly relate to it. I can relate to, yes, I had this picket fence image, so to speak, in my mind that said, I want to wait till I get married and have my children, and this person's going to live with me forever and ever. And I can tell for most people that had that, it just didn't happen, right? For whatever reason, for temptation, for you thought you were giving up that virginity to the love of your life, and the marriage and everything else would come, but then life happens, right? And it just doesn't work out. And then there are people that do it knowing that they don't have the intentions of staying with you, and Caribbean men are known for this. And so you give in to these human desires as a woman, and it doesn't work out the way and that's how our hearts get broken, right?
Precisely.
So even now, for us non-virgins that are single, we are also relating to it because we're not out there having sex with numerous partners. We're waiting for the one, but we're not virgin. So a lot of people can relate to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I had for you was there any trauma in your life? Someone actually sent me that question, like any sexual trauma that contributed to your thoughts.
You know what? That's a great question. And when I would say I've had trauma, and I would say that because having my stance, literally living in the world that I live in with my brain walking around, I have felt more people thought like me than actually do think like me or have thought like me. I really did. I probably thought I was walking around and 60% of single people were virgins. That's how I felt. Now, that was erroneous. And I figured that out a little late. But, when I had interactions with guys, they would always push, and I would be like, what are they doing? I thought we all thought the same. And that was traumatic, to be honest. That was traumatic for me, like in high school with the first male experience. I didn't appreciate the way that he touched me or tried to become physical with me. I was like, but what is this? And so, yes, I would say so. And I've done a lot of like soul searching and prayer about those things, because I don't want to have a scar concerning that. Just because I walked around with some rose-colored glasses, I don't want to have a scar that follows me into raising my own family, right? Or even having a sexual experience with that. And so I would say, even in the tiniest way, I'll answer that question for somebody who wrote in, that yes, there was some trauma.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit to like maybe high school, college years. With peer pressure, you still at that point thought most of your friends were virgins, or did you realize at that point they weren't?
No. I really totally thought they were. Totally thought they were, unless they told me otherwise. So they were, in my mind, innocent until proven guilty. I literally, that's how I went around life.
I'll share this with you and I have a daughter that's about to be 21. I can tell you, as a Caribbean parent, it was difficult because I took her to the doctor like at middle school age, ready for high school, and the doctor started talking to her about sex. Yep. And and me and her were like, what? And she was like, and she's like, this is a time I have to start talking to you because kids your age are having sex. So just so you know, obviously you're a lot older, but just relating personal experience with you, that kids that young, which as parents is the worst nightmare for us, but it is happening. So it's happening in middle school, it's happening certainly in high school, certainly in college. Right. So now you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of virgin friends or just a handful of friends?
I have a handful, but I was told that that's more than most people. I have a handful of friends, and then I have a handful of friends who got married and are no longer virgins, but they were. So I still know people, and because I know people and I have known people for many years who have lived this lifestyle, you can imagine why I walked around with the rose-colored glasses. I was like, oh, wait, you're not? And when I found out that they weren't, I was a little shocked. So the truth is, I'm now completely enlightened and middle school, end of elementary. I mean, when I was in New York, I used to teach at an elementary school, and they were underneath the stairs doing what I was told was a teabagging. I don't know if you guys know that, but
I don't.
I'll cut the image and then there's a ball here and there's a mouth here. So there we go. That's
okay.
So that's what they were doing. So that's elementary. And so the pediatrician was right.
Yeah. So you get to your 30s and you're a virgin. So tell us what a date is like. Like, when do you tell someone, hey, I'm a virgin? Do you go on a couple dates first? Do you date a lot?
Okay, that's great. So as of now, I don't date. I'm seeing someone exclusively. So I don't date as I used to. But in New York, when I lived there, I lived all of my 20s in New York. And I dated quite a bit. And imagine, like, I dated so much that you would think that those rose-colored glasses would be like completely removed. But even all throughout that period, the 20s period, I was in undergrad, I was in graduate school, and I still kind of thought people walked around like me. Now, what was a date like at that time? I was wined, I was dined, I was treated well. I can tell a funny story if you want. This is one of I love this story. So I went out with this guy, and we went to a lounge, and we danced. Oh gosh, this is embarrassing. We went to a lounge and we were dancing in Manhattan, and the DJ was a Jamaican DJ. Oh gosh. There was a song at the time that said, Take away her virginity. That's what the song was. And I didn't know of the song. I wasn't up on the music, maybe. The DJ, before he dropped the tune, he said, all of the virgin in the place, all of the virgin in the place, put up in her hand, put up in her hand. And I was so silly. I put up my hand. And I was the only one with the hand. And it was so embarrassing. Everybody was looking at me like, I think it was just like a hype thing. I don't think he expected everybody to put up their hand, but I did, okay? That was in complete shock and embarrassment. And at that point, the gentleman that I was dancing with, he knew.
Yeah. You claimed it. You were the only person, so you were feeling the vibe. So you put up your hand.
I put up my hand.
Would you put up your hand now?
I now know the song. So if the song changes, I will know. Okay? I will know not to put up my hand.
Oh, so one of the questions that came in is, do you have sexual desires?
Oh, okay. Yes, as I said earlier, I want not to be a virgin anymore because I really would like to experience it. What's the tough part is I realized a lot of Hollywood is fantasy. I've stopped watching a lot of movies like this because when it romances this idea and makes it seem like it's the best thing since sliced bread, I think it may be too much. Maybe it's too much of it being built up in my head and magnified and elevated. And so I realize all of this is very much fantasy. Even like the love story in Hollywood is very much fantasy.
Right.
It's a lot of perfection, and this is the moment. And I've understood now there's no moment and there's no perfection and there's no ideal and there's none of this. There's connection between people, and we want the connection to be genuine, and I do. So I have a desire for a genuine connection with the person, and I pray it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So how soon do you tell someone, and I guess you probably have to generalize it, that you are a virgin when you're dating? Do you tell them up front?
Fairly upfront, not so early, but obviously that was the first date and I was pushing up my hand, which, I won't be doing that. But ordinarily, it could be like 3 dates in.
Yeah.
Fairly early. And I remember, I've gotten a variety of responses depending on how much it was built into their culture and their religion and stuff like that. Some of them will be like, oh yeah, we kind of expected that. Or, oh, that's great, you still are? Or they'll say, I didn't expect that. And, I'll tell you if that will be a deal breaker as we continue our dating relationship. But as you know, Donna, in the article, I talked about how all of those responses have ended up in disaster for me because they'll start off saying, that's interesting. Oh, you still are. Oh, that's great. To, okay, I think I can handle it. To not being able to handle it, to not liking it, to not being fond of me.
Yeah. So I get that. And I want to tell you that it's challenging whether you're a virgin or not. Because women that are single that choose not to just sleep around, you're not just going to give your body to someone if well, a lot of women don't just give their bodies to someone. Even if we've had our kids and we've already had sex, but men don't want to wait. And to me, it just means that's not the man for you. So it's a challenge dating period. So I can just imagine some people might think it's a challenge if you tell them I'm a virgin, they're like, oh, I can help you with that. But then you also want the marriage to come with it, or has that changed now that you've gotten older?
So yeah, I still want the marriage to come with it. Well, really what I want is security to come with it. I will amend my statement to say that, because for me, I don't want the marriage so much that I'm willing to marry so I can have this sex, right?
Right.
So I want to feel a sense of security enough where marriage and sex could come together. And I think if I've committed to that person and they have committed to me to want to marry, there comes that sense of security. And so I guess that's the most important part, that the message that I would like to leave with young women, right? Because it's not marriage for marriage's sake. There's a safety that you'd like to feel. And
Right.
that safety, the more permanent kind would come in marriage, of course. And that's what we're hoping to find, the more permanent kind of safety.
Okay. So a lot of people get married thinking they've found that security. So I want you to tell me what your security means, right? Because it could mean something to different people, something else. So a lot of people get married. We know the divorce rate is like probably over 50% at this point. So when people get married, they're not expecting to get divorced. They've said, I've made this commitment, I'm gonna have my kids with this person, I'm gonna be with them. For whatever reason, now you realize, you know, when you just date someone and living with them is two different things. If you marry younger and you're older in your marriage now, some people just stay in it for the kids' sake or because they're financially attached to each other, so that it's cheaper to keep her, is one of the things that people say.
Yes.
So you can get married and still not have that security that we all fantasized on as little girls. Yeah. So what is security for you at this stage in life?
Oh, that's so great. And I'm glad that you brought up the fantasizing again, because once more, I've recently come to terms with that idea. All of this is rubbish. All of this is foolishness, this fantasy, right? So I was a big fairy tale, folk tale, Mother Goose person. I loved, and my mom, she knew I was a voracious reader, so she would give me all those stories. But that was a whole lot of indoctrination that she didn't know she was giving me. I am a damsel in distress, and a prince comes on a horse, and he rescues me, and I'm in the tower, and I put down my hair, and he climbs up and rescues me. That is a fantasy. That kind of rescuing and that kind of safety net, that is a fantasy, as well as Hollywood movies that show this gallant man who comes and rescues you from your desperate times and being hurt by another man and all of these things. Also fantasy. So what I have hoped to find is safety first for me and happiness for me. That's really, because I don't think I'll find safety and happiness in another person. I know I can do it here, right? God and me, we can work that out. But I'm hoping that I'll find someone equally as healthy, and we can, in our individual safety and security, come together. And if we are not taken by this Hollywood imagery, fantasy imagery, then we can begin building something genuine and real and authentic. So
I think there's also something to be said, as I'm listening to you, as you know, you're older now, you're more mature, you're figuring out, or you figured out who you are at this stage in life, what's important to you. A lot of us have regrets of who we've dated. Sometimes we look back and we say, oh my gosh, how did I ever date that person, right?
Right.
And how did you give yourself to this person? How did you even have kids? Which is why we end up divorcing, right? So there's something to be said about waiting until you discover who you are as a person as well. That's probably not what you were doing, or maybe in there somewhere along with everything else you mentioned. So now you're more mature to know exactly what you're looking for, which is why a lot of older people when I say older, more mature, 30s, 40s, 50s, say, I'm not willing to settle for certain things because you're now discovered more. Who you were in your 20s is certainly not who you are now in your
Correct.
30s and 40s.
That
So I'm just going to check in with our audience a little bit here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We just wanted to start the conversation. Michelle Hussein from Atlanta says she speaks so eloquently. Hi,
I'm going to plug in my laptop really quick, so I'm
no problem. Hi, Mish. Thanks for tuning in, Michelle McLean. And Joan Virtue Taylor says we can relate. Michelle says is asking if you're an only child. So I'll wait for you to come back in screen. How does your parents feel now? That was one of the questions I had, Susan. So we'll ask her those questions once she's up and running with us. Night all. Hi, Judy Brown. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Lisa Haas. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in. And we're going to have a couple questions for Tiffany. We're just holding on until she gets plugged in before she loses power. The busy lives we live. So if you're tuning in now, we're talking to Tiffany Knowles, who is a virgin. She's 37 years old. And if you have any questions for her, I have a couple more because I got some along the way. David Muir, thank you so much for sending me some questions today. I want to recognize him. So we still have some more questions for Tiffany as she gets set up here.
I lost some light because I had to plug something out.
That's okay, no problem. You good now?
Yeah. How does it look okay still?
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So Michelle Hussein says, she's asking if you're the only child and the only girl, or if you have other siblings.
Oh yes, I am. I have other siblings. I have all brothers, and I am. So I'm not the only child at all. And so not growing up with sisters was very interesting. Growing up with all brothers, it can be. Maybe that's part of why my mom wanted me to be this lovely conservative lady.
What do your brothers think of you being a virgin now?
Okay, well, I think they appreciate it. I know my younger brother asked me a few years ago, which I was like, huh? He said, so did you have sex with him? And I was like, no. And I guess that was his way of checking in. So, are you still fighting the good fight? You know? But he asked it very nonchalantly, which is kind of cool because he was like, no pressure if you did. So, which, you know, I appreciated that he was okay if I didn't have that title anymore.
And Susan Chin is asking, how do your parents feel now about your virginity status?
I think that they're okay with it.
I think we might be losing Tiffany a little bit. We'll wait to see if she chips back in.
To engage in that in marriage. But I think that's the most, that is what they would want very much for me.
Okay. So do your parents ever say to you, so what's happening now, Tiffany? Or no, you're just doing your thing and they're just proud of who you are today as who you are?
Yes, so they're just proud of who I am today, but they may be watching because they asked for the link. So they keep up and they read the article, the Christian Post article, they sure did.
Yeah. So, I think as a mom, I'd be very proud of you. I mean,
Would you?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think you're a great role model for young girls. Just sharing your experience. So thank you. Paula Haas says hello, and Denisha Davis says, Tiffany, that's my girl, lifelong friend.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you, everyone that's tuning in. So David asked this question, what guided you to your faith? Um,
What guided me to my faith?
mhm.
Okay. Well, a faith is a living, breathing, moving thing. And it's very important that we know that, because we can't get stuck in a specific interpretation of it, or a specific narrative, if we're being moved to also explore and think on a higher level. So there are stages in God. And I read this wonderful book about the stages of God, because a lot of us come in starting with God and faith because we want something from it. So it's all about, like, what can you give me? What can you give me? But then you learn and grow, and you see God in trial, and you see him in pain. And then it's like, God, get me out of this. And so he rescues you. But then you see him in you being of service. And then that's, and then God evolves as you evolve in your understanding of him. So what guided me to my faith specifically uh, was being a young person in church, growing up, like singing, dancing, um, doing drama, recitations, poems, all kinds of stuff in church, being very, very involved in a youth group. That was my first, that was my introduction. And of course, my family. And then as an adult, like, how can I remain full of faith now? And I've lived a lot longer than Don thought I had lived on the earth. So how do I remain in faith now? It's just about more reading, more understanding, more praying, more meditating, so you can get to a higher level in your faith.
Okay, so another question was, do you self-pleasure? Do you have sexual desires? Do you have those desires, and do you self?
Okay, yeah, so I have those desires. This is a great question, Don. I have those desires, and I went to, it was like a trade show, and one of the ladies who had a booth, she had this wonderful booth on adult toys, and she gave me a little pouch as a sample. She gives samples away. It's so interesting. And the samples she gave away were like a mini vibrator, something else I can't remember, but little tokens, party favors. She does bachelorette parties and things. And so I haven't used those, but they seem interesting. So I don't, I don't technically self-pleasure, and I don't plan on it, but I do like that she gave me those if I wanted to try it.
Yeah. Thank you for the answer. I get that question as a single person that isn't out there dating a lot. They're like, what do you do with these desires, right?
Yes.
And I guess after a while, you don't even feel them, at least for me, because I'm so active. Well, before COVID-19, because I'm involved with sports. I work a lot. I work long hours at work, and then I have the show. So I am not thinking about sex, and I'm personally turned on by someone that inspires me, that's intellectual, that I can connect with, that's fit, that meets certain criteria I have, right? So when people ask me that question, I really, every now and then I do, I guess, but I'm so busy, and I'm the same like you. I don't do the toy thing.
But you're right. I heard this from a male friend of mine. As long as you remain active, there is a concept called sexual transmutation. And I read a little bit on it, because he said, generally this was an argument for men, because men battle with this a lot more than women, according to science. But sexual transmutation says, if you have a lot of sexual energy, channel it into something like your show, like books, like reading, like dancing, like working out, and you'll see that you can become very, very skilled in an area by just using the sexual desire you have and channeling it.
Yeah.
So you guys, look it up. Sexual transmutation. That's what
I can relate to that. But once you've gone there, once you've had it, especially if you've had good partners, which I understand you haven't had any yet, it's a different thing because you already know what you're missing. Like in your case, it may be curiosity, so you haven't gone there yet. So that was one of the questions as well, is do you know what you're missing? Have you ever researched, watched movies, and just from conversations with probably your girlfriends or male friends, know what comes out of sexual pleasure and curiosity, missing that?
Yes. So some very good friends of mine have been, and they may be watching, so they've had in-depth conversations with me about what I'm missing. So that's helpful. But I don't think it's helpful enough because I need to know, I need to know exactly what you're talking about, because I've had cheesecake, especially the salted caramel one that they came out with at Cheesecake Factory. That's really good. And I know what that tastes like. And I've experienced it. So I know what I'm missing if I don't have that. So I can't really fully embody or empathize, but I can based on the information I've been given. And then I've read some literature. I haven't read a lot. I was on a show, it was a Hot 105 with Jill Tracy, and there was a woman who does What That Mouth Do class. I forgot her name, but she does a class on oral sex, and she invited me. I told her I'd be coming, but I won't be coming now. I want to get there. I want to take that class closer to engagement or marriage. So yes, but
wow. I wouldn't even go to that class. I don't want that class.
God, I tell you, yeah.
My advice is just go to that class, okay? That's interesting. And Livingstone Knowles, which is dad, right?
Yes.
He says, yes, we are very proud of our daughter. And we pray that you continue to be a role model for young women all over the world. Thank you for that, Mr.
You were watching. It's my
daddy. Dad, I had a couple disclaimers in there. If she don't want to answer, she doesn't have to answer. But you both have been great parents, and I can see the love that she has for you shining through as well. A lot of kids wish they had wonderful parents, so it's good to have two strong parents that have instilled their beliefs. And a lot of times we don't know their journey, but they've certainly raised a beautiful daughter, which is a reflection of them as well. And we're glad that you can inspire young girls as well, because there's no rush to dating. And as we get older and we've had our own hearts broken and we see our daughters, we try to, and our sons, we try to instill in them the importance of, being with people that you do think you'll be with for, I don't think forever is forever as often as we think, but at a time, for as long as you commit to that person and grow together, especially with the Christian beliefs that you and your family have as well. A lot of Caribbean, especially dads, and I'm talking from personal experience here, a lot of dads are so horrible with women, like just date so many different women, break so many hearts, that they get overly strict with their daughters as well. You don't seem to have that in your family. It was more of a structured family, which is awesome to see. But yeah, let's see if we have any questions as well. Do you have dreams? Someone asked me that. David Muir said, do you have dreams about?
Yes. So yeah, I do have dreams. And, in our tradition, in our Christian tradition, some of these dreams have been nightmarish for me. So I've actually sought prayer about them, because I didn't see myself as being myself. And in the dream, that's not like what would reflect what I want in reality. So just really not great dreams. So I've actually prayed about them, and so don't have dreams that are nightmarish like that anymore. But so yeah, occasionally it could be I'm past an age where I have like those intense dreams. Maybe it could be that, but I don't have a lot anymore. So kind of simple, simple stuff now, simpler.
Okay. So, what do you want young girls or any of us to take away from this tonight, from your personal journey?
Okay. Well, I think I have always kind of gone against the grain. Would I have changed the way I lived? Because because of this thing that I didn't participate in, I was left out of discussion sometimes, of parties, things like that. But I have always kind of liked being different and marching to the beat of my own drum and doing things that maybe were a little anti the norm, anti-establishment. So I liked being me. So I definitely advise a young person to find your unique path, very unique path, and live that. And that actually, this commitment that I have to myself has helped me live a more unique life. So.
Mm-hmm. So, were you ever bullied for it, or just a lot of peer pressure? And how did you find that personal peace or balance?
Bullied, not so much. But as I said in the article, if anyone of you has read that, I have had difficulty with trust with men, because they start off being very gung-ho. They're like, you're so awesome, I can do this. And maybe they don't have the self-awareness enough to know that it takes some discipline to
Mm-hmm.
to live this life. It's not for the faint at heart, right? So you say you can do it, you want to walk this road with me, and then I think sometimes they just become the worst people, the the most unkind, and they end up treating me badly. And it could very well be unknown to them that this kind of the way they're acting out could be sexual frustration. They may not even know that it is. But I've lived this way for so long, I don't have that kind of frustration, or it doesn't manifest the way for other people who've experienced it. So I guess it can be a little bit tough on the guy, and I understand that, and I've come to terms with that, which is why I wrote that article. It wasn't intended to bash, so I hope that those who read it didn't think that.
I
It was
hope not.
self-awareness.
Yeah. And for the guys, I just say screw them. I don't make excuses. They need to get over it. I mean, here they are dating someone that knows what she wants. And, if it doesn't fit in your game, then, next,
Yeah.
so to speak, because time is so precious every day that we live. That would be my advice to you is, don't worry about them, because you're very honest with them. You're telling them upfront within a reasonable time, look, this is me. Are you dating mainly Christians, or are you that date?
Oh,
Right.
very good. So for most of the time I've dated has been mostly Christian. So we could say a good 90% kind of understand this stance and belief system, or they have adopted it themselves.
Yeah.
And then the other 10%, that was more, could be casual dates. And if I realize that maybe their personality is not the type that I like, or it just doesn't fit, then we don't date anymore.
Okay. So I do something spontaneous with you. I listened to something you did where you did an African accent. You do voiceovers, right?
Yeah, I'm a voiceover artist, so I do a lot of different dialects. And I think that interview you heard me on, I did an African accent. Yeah.
Can you do that one or something else that you like? I love the African one, by the way.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
cool.
Let's see. I can do the African one. Let me see if I can read something. Okay. Okay, let me make it topical, actually. Come on now, you cannot sleep here. You know that if you sleep here, we are going to have sex. So you cannot sleep here. You have to go to your house. Please go home. You know, I have to pray and read my Bible. I have to pray, read my Bible, and fast. That is what I'm doing today. I am not involving myself with you and your antics and your nonsense. So that's it.
Thank you for that. I so enjoy it. I so enjoy your personality and all the skills you have, because you remember everything they say about Caribbean people, how hardworking we are, and we have multiple jobs. So tell us about you, because you are a professor as well,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what else are you and your dad up to?
So yeah, I have a few different vocations. So I'm a professor of communication studies and journalism. I am a writer and a journalist, and my dad and we co-authored a book called Hola America, Guts, Grit, Grind, and Further Traits in the Successful American Immigrant. Now from that book, we've decided to spin it off into providing some learning platforms, some course materials, because since I was a kid, I remember my parents being very instrumental in helping new immigrants. So they would help them get acclimated, like help them fill out forms and help them find jobs. They would always be asking, they would come to our house, or we would host them, or my dad would go and help them, provide them jobs because he had his own business. So in that, because that's kind of been our calling as a family, and we kids loved it because we love meeting new people. My dad and I have decided we're going to kind of focus on providing more learning opportunities for immigrants, as well as helping them fill out forms and things like that as an add-on to the book, because it's very much needed resources to ensure that it can be tough, leaving your country and coming here. So you need some support. And so that's what the new project we're working on.
Good. So we'll post all your links, and I like to do it after the show because I don't want to give the audience too much information in advance. So I'm going to post the article that I did see. Alisa Haas says she is such a lovely young woman. Your prince is out there. Time will come. It won't matter to the right man. He will wait. And Mom is watching as well. Welcome, Sonia Lopez, Mom. Good to have you on. And Michelle Hussein from Atlanta. Love your African accent. I think my viewers know me by now. My head is already spinning with ideas on different things all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because I do the Caribbean Edge Kids Show, which is only 4 weeks into it, which is exciting in itself. Mm-hmm. So you never know what I'll come up with next. But we certainly appreciate you. I think, you've enlightened me, certainly. You've enlightened viewers. I don't want this show just to be about the fact that you're a 37-year-old virgin, but it's more than that. For me, it's the fact that you can inspire us all, young girls, to say, whatever your thing is, whether you're respecting yourself, whether you're holding on until you think you've met the right person, whether it's you're waiting for marriage because you want to make as best a decision you can to
Right.
be with that one person, that you're someone that's living that, even though you still have those desires, those wants, you still want to experience it, but you want to do it your way. And I think that's so important to see that.
Yeah, I definitely want to be true to who I am, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And anyone who is opposed to me being comfortable in my own skin and in my own belief, as some of the viewers said, no, not for me. So
Yeah, well, thank you. And like Lisa said, I just hope I'm going to continue to follow you, obviously, and you can keep me posted. I can't wait for you to meet that knight in shining armor that's just going to wait and value enough to say, yes, this is the woman. And I just want to know 20, 30 years from now, you're still married to this wonderful guy.
that would be
It's
great.
really awesome. I don't know any other virgins personally. Well, all my friends are older, but even in high school, I was the only virgin. But
Okay, you know what, Dawn, I have a question for you. I really
yeah.
want to know this. Okay. Now, because I waited not just so long for the sex thing, but also for marriage, do you think that my marriage will be more fulfilling because I'm more sure of myself now?
I think it will be, it depends. It depends because you know who you are, but for any relationship, you really don't know that person, right? You're meeting, a lot of people say you're meeting that person's representative. So you have to, a lot of it is your judgment. Based on my experience, it's about meeting someone that can at least meet you where you are somewhere in life, and then you taking that and growing with it. So if you were my daughter, that's the advice I would give you, is you have certain needs and beliefs in your mind that you want, and some of them you'll have to compromise on. But I think that growth together is so important. The spark that you continue to have, the respect that you have. Um, I would say date for a while someone, and then if you got married in 6 months, a year, would you know that person? Some of us are married for 5 years and we still don't know who you're with. And you divorce someone and they're the ugliest person. So I think a lot of what we do is a chance, and you make the best decision at the time. And you marry someone, hopefully they're as committed to the relationship and to grow in it, in your own Christian beliefs and your personal beliefs, and you have children and raise them together. So a lot of important questions, you're older now, that you can ask this person before you decide where you want to go.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that's the case, because there's no rose-colored glasses. Like I'm a lot more grounded in what's happening and
Yeah.
who I am. So I'm hoping that that is what I attract, or that's what I give off. So will return to me. So
And with your Christian beliefs in God, God will be there for you. Trust in Him that He will send the right person, that your journey thus far, He'll continue to guide you. I can always interview them for you if you'd like
that would be much appreciated, actually. So I'll give you the list, and I'll have you.
Between your mama, your dad, me, your grandma, we all gonna interview them.
I appreciate that. Anyone who'd like to be part of that committee, let me know.
Any parting words for the guests tonight? We're so honored to have you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this story. I hope it was informative. It's still just my own personal journey. So I try not to provide too many prescriptions, because it's fighting the good fight, and you have to believe it all the way to the end. But even if you hadn't gotten all the way to the end, it is still my hope that you have been true to yourself and have been honest with you, honest with the person, honest with God about where you are and what you would like. Because it's the worst thing in the world to pretend and to fake it. It's not great at all. So please be your authentic self.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thanks for joining the Caribbean Edge. We will certainly keep in touch with you. Have a beautiful evening, everyone that tuned in. Bye.
Bye.